Okay, it is now 8:35. Coming back from closed session. Item E, reconvene to open session. It is now 8:35. Item F, announcements of actions taken in closed session. Amy, we didn't take any actions, right? No actions to report. Item G's, comments from the public. The board will take any and all comments from the public related to an item on the agenda or any other item of district business that is not on the agenda. Mr. Carrillo, would you like to go right now, or would you like to go when the item comes? Right now. Thank you, Mr. Carrillo. Speaker.
Oh, there we go. So I've removed my mask. Honorable Board, President, Superintendent of Schools, here for the Calexico Unified School District, and members of the audience. My name is Victor Carrillo, 2156 Art Carrillo Court, here in Calexico. I'm here on behalf of CR&R, Waste Management and Recycling. We were one of the two bids, I believe, for the extension of the waste management agreement and services to be provided with the Calexico Unified School District. And we weren't the low bidder, but I'm here to thank you for the opportunity for CR&R to serve the Calexico Unified School District. The past academic school year was different for everyone worldwide as well as nationwide and regionally, with the closure of schools, the closure of government facilities, and the restriction of the public's movement. But I applaud and congratulate Allied Waste, known as Republic. It's a reputable company. They have many years in the industry, and I'm confident that they'll continue providing splendid service to the school district, as well as what they provide to the community of Calexico, Imperial, and Imbrali here in Imperial County. We will remain loyal and steadfast to the Calexico Unified School District, so if you ever need us in the future, we're at beck and call. We'll be available where we can provide those services to you. So once again, in closing, I just want to thank you again for the agreement that we enjoyed, also the extension that we benefited from 2 years ago, and I look forward to the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carrillo. Item H, presentations, H1, Independent Studies Program. Ms. Ramirez. Is it here or?
Yeah, that's okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Today we're going to share with the board a presentation that was shared with our parents. This Tuesday, August the 10th, we had a session in Spanish and a session in English for our parents, because it's important for them to understand the independent study program, what it entails, what are some of the requirements that commitments on the parent, and what are some of the activities that their students will be participating or not being able to participate. So during this session, we will discuss what we should know about independent studies, what are parent agreements and requirements in order for them to enroll their children, and then what is a schedule going to look like. So we have some sample schedules. We did tell our parents that it's very important for them to consider independent studies when their children's health would put them at risk by in-person instruction. The AB 130 does state that a parent does not have to justify what they consider to be at risk. So any parent who determines that their child is at risk, even if it's out of fear, are entitled to participate in independent studies. The other thing is we'll be using independent studies for students who are, as AB 104, are able to graduate with the minimum requirements that the state provides. So if a student was short 1 or 2 classes, they will be able to participate in independent studies too. So we want to make sure that parents understand that independent studies is not the same as distance learning as we've known during the pandemic. The work is truly independent. And we also wanted them to understand that there's a lot of requirements that come with it and a lot of commitment. So independent studies is available for any child from TK through 12. It is an alternative to classroom instruction. However, it's not an alternative to curriculum. Whatever course standard curriculum we're using in a regular classroom has to be offered also to our independent students, study students, including advanced placement courses. And then enrollment is completely voluntary. We cannot force a student to go to independent studies. So a student working independently, what does that mean? A student who participates in an independent study program will primarily receive instruction and or support from the parent or guardian and work independently through assignments, and they're going to be following a learning plan assigned by an independent study teacher. In distance learning, the teacher would see the student throughout the day, multiple occasions. Independent study has different schedules where they will more than likely see a student on a daily basis, 30 minutes to an hour at the lower grade levels, and in the upper grade levels, sometimes it's just 2 or 3 times a week. So it's very much independent work. Daily participation in live interaction and synchronous instruction, as well as assignments, assessments, and grades will be recorded, and they will be monitored very closely. Independent studies is not a program for a student that was not engaged, as we did with distance learning. We are required to have a tiered re-engagement strategy for independent study students who are absent or are not participating for more than 3 school days, or 60% of the instructional day in a school week. So as soon as a student stops doing work or is not engaged, we have to immediately call the family and re-engage them. Or if they're in violation of the student's required written agreement. So for example, if they don't turn in their work by due dates, if work is due the following week, during independent studies, there's strict guidelines. You can't say, well, I'll turn it in the following week. If you're not turning your work on the assigned date, then you are in danger or in violation of your agreement. And what happens is that a student who fails to maintain either adequate participation or learning progress will be disenrolled from the independent study program. So in the conversations that we have with our parents, we say, well, let's look at the pros and the cons. One of our pros is that a child, if they are medically at risk, well, they get to learn from home. It is independent learning, so a child can learn independently at different hours. So if I have to see my teacher from 8 to 10, then the rest of the day, I can plan my assignments, and I can finish my assignments for the week in 2 or 3 days, or I can lay it out throughout the week. So those are some of the pros. What are some of the cons? Well, some of the cons are that you will be monitored very carefully with your participation, and you could be disenrolled. And if you are disenrolled, if you break the contract, and if we try to re-engage the student and it's still not working, then the student has to go back to regular in-class programs. And we have 5 days to put them back in a classroom. But the con here is that if, for example, I happen to be a student in 1st grade in Blanche Charles, and I'm ready to go back, if 1st grade is no longer available at Blanche Charles because the enrollment is so impacted that there's no space, then we will have to offer the parent another site. So we can't save the teacher's space or the student's space in a school. So sometimes parents get upset when we tell them there's no space. So they do need to understand that they might lose that space. We will also try to match as best we can the classes, for example, at the junior high and high school. But for example, if you have a 6-period class and then you're going back to a regular class, if we cannot find a space for you in a class that's similar, then you might not be able to take that class. For example, let's say that I'm in regular language arts, I go to a school and there's no space for me in regular language arts in my schedule, but I can get honors English. Then I might have to take the honors English class. It's whatever is going to be available. Or if now you have an interest of going into ASB, but there's no space in ASB, then you won't be able to participate. If you leave 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks into the year, you're going to start 5 weeks into the year wherever you're going to be ending up on. So students have to adjust to the change. The other con is you cannot participate in any in-person activity. If the reason students are participating in this for this school year because of they're either medical fragile or they are fear of going in person, then students are not allowed to step onto campuses to do band, sports, or any of those activities. Everything is absolutely virtual. Clubs. If they want to participate in a club, you cannot go to another site to go into a club. However, an independent studies teacher can create a virtual club, and they can participate virtually with that teacher. If students are seniors and they're participating in this program and they finish in this program, the most they can be in an independent study is 1 year based on the contract. If they want to stay another year, they have to complete another contract. But if you're a senior and you stayed in independent study the entire year, you cannot participate in a physical graduation. Okay, you will be probably more than likely do a virtual graduation, but you cannot request to go into a physical graduation. So these are some of the pros and cons. We are encouraging our families to have discussions if this is what will work for them. Some of the parents have asked, well, what if I start in person and I decide to go to independent studies? And so what we've been telling the parents is it's no different than if 3 weeks from now you requested and we don't have space in our independent study program, then we won't be able to accommodate you, okay? The law is very specific about students with special needs. So if a student has an IEP, they may still have the option to enroll in independent studies. However, this cannot happen until they had an IEP meeting. And during these IEP meetings, the conversations that take place, the team has to determine if independent study is appropriate and the least restrictive environment. If the team determines that this is not what's best for the child, then they will not qualify for independent studies. And in the multiple webinars that we've attended, they've made it very clear that independent studies, for the majority of the time, is not appropriate for our students with special needs because they need additional services that could only be provided in a regular in-person setting. So what is the parent engagement requirements and the enrollment process? So step number one is we need to notify our parents and guardians that there's this option to enroll students in independent studies. So we did have that session on Tuesday. We did record our session and we put it in our webpage so that parents who missed the meeting can go back and see the presentation, which is this exact presentation. We also have to have a signed learning agreement. And this agreement has to be signed by the parent, the teacher, the administrator, within 30 days of them starting instruction. So if we start instruction on August the 23rd, we need to meet with these families before we go to September 23rd. So no more than 30 days. So as you can see, this with the numbers that we have requesting it, it's going to be a lot of work. The other thing is we need to schedule a conference with the parents so that they understand and we go over this agreement. So what does the schedule look like? I'm going to show you some drafts because at the end of the day, the teacher is the one who's going to design their schedule, especially if they have multiple grades in one class. So words or terms that our parents are going to be hearing is live interaction, synchronous instruction, and asynchronous instruction. Live interaction is just checking in with the child and seeing how they're doing with assignments, with attendance, or just a wellness check. And this can be done by anyone. It could be a counselor, a psychologist, the teacher, the administrator, or even a classified staff member. Synchronous instruction, that is teaching our students live. It could be through Zoom, it could be with a small group, a large group. It could even be through a chat if you have a chat format in your learning management system. And then asynchronous is when students are working independently, whether it's online, with an online program, or they have a project or an assignment that's a paper pencil. So you've seen these modes when we were doing distance learning. So on the left side, you see samples of synchronous learning. Again, it could be via Zoom. It could be one-to-one, small groups, or a whole class presentation, but it's live. Or you can be chatting through, or instant messaging through whatever platform you're using. Asynchronous, however, that's if I record myself in a video, or if I assign them lessons on a program, such as Acellus, or Khan Academy, or ST Math, whatever programs we have out there. And then we manage this through our learning management system. So instructional sessions may be organized in a multi-grade format. We are trying our best, because we have large number of requests, to have no more than 2 grade levels. So I might be a teacher that has a first, second grade, or a second, third grade, or I might have a class that's all first grade. But in the past, what we've seen with traditional independent studies is you could have anywhere from elementary, junior high, and high school all mixed. So if we happen to have only 15 students in our school, in our district, that wanted independent studies, and they were from all different grade levels, then the independent teacher has all those grade levels in the same class. So here's a sample of a TK through third. What Ed Code 51747E says is that for our TK through third, daily live interaction is optional. We do not have to interact with them and do wellness check. And the reason behind that is because this requires, for these grade levels, it's required that every day you provide instruction to the students. So we still left it there as optional, because we can always be checking on a daily basis if needed, just to see how our students are doing, especially at the beginning of this process. But the recommendation could be that on a Monday, for example, the teacher is going to meet with the students and provide the weekly assignments. You know, this week, this is what we're going to be covering. We're going to be doing this in language arts, this in our designated LD class if you're an English learner, and so forth. Then the following day, the teacher will go in and teach the lesson, and they could pick any content area. So I could do Tuesday, I can do, for example, mathematics. Wednesday, I can do language arts. So that's how the teacher is going to determine how they're going to be providing the instruction. And then for the rest of the week, when they're not with me, then you're going to be doing asynchronous work, and that could be anywhere from 3 to 5 hours, and this is required because we have to meet the minimum instructional minutes. So this is where the load of the work goes to the caregiver. So if a child is not being monitored and a child is not doing the work, or it's being monitored by a grandparent, for example, that's when we have to start working with their parents and letting them know, you know what, you're at risk of losing an opportunity to be in independent studies because your child's not engaged. For 4th through 8th, the Ed Code 51747 changes a little bit. For this one, they say that they have daily live interaction and weekly synchronous instruction. So for our 4th through 8th graders, daily live interaction is required. And the reason it's required is because when they say weekly synchronous instruction, it's different from the TK through 3rd, because that one is required daily. This one is weekly, so a teacher can go in and talk to the students on a daily basis, or they can do 3 times a week. It's not specific, it's very general. So what we're proposing is, of course, that they do the daily interactions every day. But for the weekly synchronous instruction for each of the course, we're asking that they meet with them on a day-to-day and have all their courses. So elementary will have all the core classes, math, science, language arts, designated ELD, and so forth. And the junior highs are going to have 6-period courses. So what we're saying here is that on Monday, for example, the teacher can meet with their students for 30 minutes to an hour, and they can go over English with them. And then the rest of the day, they'll be doing their asynchronous work. Then on Tuesday, we do math and so forth, and then we leave the electives on Friday. This is up to the teacher, how the teacher is going to organize this. We showed you in the other one that the teacher can decide to do all the front loading on Monday, spreading out the assignments, and then just going in every day and reviewing what the assignment was. So that's an option too. And then, of course, they also have the required asynchronous learning because we need to make sure that we meet the minimum instructional minutes. 9 through 12 releases more the students. They're even more independent. So same Ed Code 51747, but what this one says, they don't require live interaction, and they have weekly synchronous instruction. They don't even say daily synchronous instruction. So a teacher can check in and provide instruction 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, because it's very general. So what we put up here is that the weekly synchronous learning, we do want our teachers to at least 30 minutes check in with every student for at least 30 minutes per course. So if the students have 6 classes, that they do check with them in for every class at least 30 minutes during the week. And they make sure that address all the 6 periods. And then again, asynchronous learning is also required to meet the instructional minutes. Students in all of these classes, especially at the high school, should have access to AP classes. So let me give you a scenario. If I'm an independent study teacher, and based on our numbers, I'm going to have 1 class, and I'm going to have 9th through 12th graders. Yes.
Wait a minute. I'd like, Mr. President, to extend the meeting. Motion to extend the meeting until 11 o'clock.
I'll second.
This is a motion by Mr. Calderon to extend the meeting to 11.
Sorry,
This-
Mr. Ramirez.
That's okay.
There's a second by Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
So if an independent study teacher has a 9th through 12th graders in the class, if you can only imagine, if I'm the first student, I'm a 9th grader, and I have 9th grade English, I have Algebra 1, my physical education, and all my courses is a 9th grader. And then there's a 10th grader in the class, and the 10th grader is having 10th grade English, and they have a different history, a different science, a different math class. So it's impossible for an independent study teacher to teach all that content area. But they can use different programs, curriculum programs, to support them with the instruction. And so it gets complicated when it gets to the upper grades. So these are our current requests. As of yesterday, we have a total of 287 requests. Today we computed the numbers. Today I separate all those students by grade level, and today I sorted them by school. So either later tonight or this morning or tomorrow morning, I'm going to send our principals their students. And one of the things that we're going to ask our administrators is to contact these families, because they've already had about 2-3 days to think about it, and they probably saw the recording again, to determine if they do want to continue with independent studies or not. So once it's confirmed, then we will be able to start sorting our classes. But for right now, with the numbers in TK through 6, we would need 7 classes. Our classroom numbers have to match what we have in our regular contract. So our TK through 3rd have to have a ratio of 24:1. Our 4th through 6th is 30:1, and our high schools and junior highs are 34:1. So that's how we computed the 7 classes. The junior highs, we have enough for 1 class with a little bit of overages, like 7 students over. Again, we don't know if they're all going to commit, but if they are going to commit, we might have to mix some of our 7th and 8th graders with maybe our 9th graders, because we could have multiple classes with 1 teacher. And then our high school, we have 2 classes. About 15 of those students, I believe, are there because they need 1 or 2 classes in order to graduate and meet the minimum requirements from the 2021 school year. So some of our students will be able to earn their diploma. So what are our next steps? So first we need to confirm the request. We want our schools to help us confirm their students to see if they're going to stay with them or if they're going to have to be moved to independent studies. And this is super important for our schools because our principals right now are looking at their master schedules. They're looking at their numbers. They're seeing if they have enough teachers for their students. And so once they figure out how many of their students are leaving to independent studies, then they're going to have to readjust their schedules. They might end up being overstaffed because we are moving 280 students district-wide to the independent study program. Our independent study program will be overseen by our alternative education director, which is Mr. John Moreno, of course with support from administration at the district level. So what we're proposing right now is, because we have a total of 10 classes, and 7 were in elementary, that each elementary takes on 1 class. Now, when we mean by class, the teacher is alone in the class. Students are not going to be in that class. It's just an office for them to be able to Zoom and do their activities with their students. So that way, we have space at every site. So if at Bland Charles, we assign first grade to Bland Charles, for example, Bland Charles is going to get all the first graders for the district virtually, and they'll just be hosted at Bland Charles. If we had more space at Aurora, for example, we could have all 10 teachers at Aurora, but we don't have the facility, and this is a 1 year. Normally, when you apply to independent studies, there's different reasons for you to apply for independent studies. It's not just open to all. This is the only year that this is open to all, and we're required to do it. If we want to continue with independent studies the following years, then we will go back to the traditional independent studies that other programs have. And I know Mr. Calderon was sharing that at Coachella. How many did you say it's normal every year to have? About 400? 300, 700. Yeah, 300 to 400. Here, we used to have independent studies in the past, and we usually had anywhere from 2 to 15 students, and towards the end, we only had like 1 student. So we ended up not doing that program anymore because it was lack of enrollment. One of the classes will be at the junior high, and what we're proposing is to be at Willie Moreno, just because Willie Moreno has more space. It's a larger campus. Again, the teacher's going to be there. No students will be moved into there because everything's virtual. And then at Aurora, we'll probably host the 2 high school classes. If for whatever reason at Aurora we don't have we already have 1 space scheduled for independent studies, but if for whatever reason we don't have the space, which I think we do, then we can always find somewhere else to place the teacher. In terms of curriculum, the teacher of record has to be the independent study teacher. So you're going to see in some of the law that it says that you cannot contract with companies like Edgenuity or Acellus or Mentum, other learning management systems that are out there, and say that the teacher of record is going to be the company's teacher, because that could happen, because that's what we do for credit recovery. In our district, and you have approved the Acellus as a credit recovery program, just like Cyber High, okay? And so the teacher of record are the ones from the program. They monitor the program, they administer the test, and then we just see if the students did the class. But we also use Acellus in our special education classes as a supplemental program because it's a curriculum program. It has many videos and activities that students can use. So we also use it as a supplemental program. We have the core instruction from the teacher, and then the teacher assigns programs. The reason that these programs are more popular is because these programs are able to monitor how much time students are on their different programs. So they're being monitored for participation. Some of these programs can even tell you if the student just left the computer on just to put in time and are not really, it's idle. They're not doing any movements. That's why they're so popular. The other thing is that they're accredited. So if we wanted to offer AP Spanish, AP Bio, AP Chemistry, which is what we usually offer at Calexico High School, these programs have those courses, and so they have the material that teachers can use. So we looked at 3 programs, and working with my Ed Services team, we like Acellus because it's friendlier for the younger children, and Edgenuity for the high school students because of all the options that it has. So we'll be looking into those programs to be able to support our independent studies teachers, especially the high school teachers that have all these different content areas. We're monitoring our enrollment numbers to see how many students are coming in. We noticed that our TK numbers are very low, and in some schools, kinder is very low. So we don't have as many kindergartners. And when we've talked in the past with you that we have declining enrollment, and we said it's generational, it's just that people aren't having babies, so we're not getting many kindergartners as we used to. So TK and kinder classes right now are low. So what happens? What happens is that if students are not enrolling and students are opting to go to independent studies, then you're going to notice that your schools are going to have less students enrolled, so you're going to be overstaffed. So with the overstaffing, we're going to have to move teachers around, and some of those teachers will end up being our independent study teachers. There's a process that we have to go. We'll go by our ACT contract. There's a contract and it specifies the language of how we do movements. If we've done it in the past, because since we've been declining enrollment, we've been losing students. Therefore, we've always been overstaffed in some of our schools. So our plan for right now, because again, everything's changing really fast, is we will more than likely start with substitutes as we get our teachers to changes and be able to put them in there. And how we're going to support, at least my Ed Services team, and we're going to be supporting with training our substitutes and those teachers that are already ready to begin, and explaining them how independent study works, what is in that master agreement, how they're going to monitor attendance, what supports we're going to have to re-engage our families. So we have to do all that training with our substitutes who are going to be covering at the beginning, and then our teachers. And then what I'm also proposing is that our administrators, my Ed Services team is trained so that when the substitutes and teachers meet with the parent and child, that one of us will be there to support, because I know that Mr. Moreno will not be able to go to 280 meetings. So we can go in and we can be there to support the parent with questions on the master agreement, but we have 30 days to get 280 agreements completed. So we have a plan for all of this, and today was working with Eduardo Perez, our coordinator for technology, because we have to create classes in Synergy, which is how we monitor our students, and make sure that our students have the class roster where they're going to be inputted. So that's it for independent studies. Any questions you have? Yes.
I do. So when, let's just say, I enrolled my daughters to independent studies and they're there for 2 to 3 months. If I decide, you know what, this is not working, this is not what I want, or, you know what, I want them to start a sport, how would I go about that as a parent?
You just request a meeting with your teacher, a record, the independent study teacher, and your administrator, then you just have a meeting to make sure that we do the transition, and we have 5 days. So there's no requirement. It's not going to be very difficult for you to exit the program. What's going to be difficult is for us to accommodate your children if their school of residence is impacted. For the high school, there's no problem. It's the only high school. But for the junior highs, we have 2, and for the elementaries, there's 7. So we will promise to accommodate your child. We will have a space, but we can't guarantee it's in your school of residence.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
With our first day around the corner, when is the training beginning for the teachers and the substitutes?
So we have 1 week to do all of this. So all of this is new to all of us. Like we have a sample master agreement that we requested from our legal. So we need to understand how that contract works, and then we have to sit with every family. The contract, we have 30 days afterwards. What we're going to train our teachers is what learning management are you going to be using, how are students going to be getting their devices, and how are you going to schedule a week of assignments. So that's the first training we're going to do, and our hope is to do that training sometime next week.
Okay. And then the meetings will start soon after?
As soon as students enroll, we have 30 days to do the master agreement.
Okay. That's all I have.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Elisa.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. That was H1, Independent Study Program. H2, Site Safety Plans.
Yeah. All right. You hear me okay? With my mask off? All right, so we're going to review, I won't go in depth into each section, but I do want to be able to touch on a few things on the safe return of students coming up very soon. There's some significant changes that are different even than when we brought students back in April, and we'll have this as a resource on the website for parents to be able to go to and to look up information if their child's not feeling good, and you'll see what that looks like as we go. So our first section here, this list, and huge thanks to Alejandra Limon for putting all these together and bringing these documents together that are in this particular page, but just the whole format here. She really did a lot of work on this for us to bring all this information together. So this goes back to July 15th and lists all the different documents and things that we've had along this journey so far. So at the very bottom there for August 9th, you'll see the COVID prevention program plan. It's updated. That's the very last line on this page. And that will be on the website soon. That has a lot of this updated information as well. So first piece here, district missions and values. This is just stating that our first and foremost priority is the health and safety and education of our students. So we want everyone to be safe coming back to sites, and we really believe through all the science and the research that we can bring students back safely if we follow these guidelines and are constantly being vigilant there. So I'm going to come down. Physical distancing down there, as you know, is one of the pieces that were quote unquote taken out of plans. There are some requirements on physical distancing soon that we'll see coming up, but we as a district are choosing to leave the barriers on desks. That's not a requirement anymore, but it is something that we are choosing to still practice. Desks will not be spaced 6 feet or 3 feet apart. They'll be grouped a little more, but we'll still have those barriers. Sanitation and hygiene, as you know from the beginning, we clean rooms as if there was a COVID case in that room. As you know, in our daily interactions, even in this room tonight, some of us could be positive tomorrow morning, right? So it's important that we stay masked and all those things when we're not up here talking and interacting. So that's how the kind of the philosophy we have with cleaning the rooms as well, that they are disinfected and cleaned with that in mind. Moving on there to hygiene, there at the top, just that we're keeping all the barriers up, still having signs. They're going to have all the training on hand washing. We have a set of videos for training for the staff at the beginning of the year on how and why it's important to wash for 20 seconds, not 10, not 15. 20 seconds is kind of a magic number for bacteria and things, and so we'll still practice those things with the hygiene. Moving down to health screening, we're not required to have a screener or any kind of a formal document. We are asking parents to kind of do a self-screen with their children about how you're doing today, making sure they're not feverish and that they're okay as they're bringing them to school, just like we would any day. We don't like to have kids come that are already sick. It's just even more important now. And then we move on that same section there about following the guidance that we get from the public health department. And this is a big one on if anyone in the family is positive, especially the family living there, and it could be maybe they have some friends visiting and someone in the family is sick or has symptoms. And it's really important for our families not to send their children to school. We've had a number of times where a student gets sick, and when we reach out to the family, they're saying, oh gosh, yes, my wife tested positive last night. And so, but my child felt fine. So, but we're really want to emphasize this, that families keep their children home if someone is sick in the home, and they can test, and then we can go from there on how to get them back to school once we know that they're okay to return. But we want to keep those considerations in mind. Coming up here on what happens to instruction if a class or school is quarantined and closes. This very bottom heading here is one of the biggest changes here, and I am going to go through this a little more in depth because it's new. It's very unique, has to do with vaccines and masking. So this is something that we'll probably be dealing with every week, I would imagine, possibly on campus. So as you know, right now we have an Appendix C, and this will get to that on tracing. When someone's positive, we know what we do. We go through this form. We identify close contacts, start contact tracing. We have some forms we send out. That's changing now. So you'll see at the at the top of this, when both parties, or say two students, have masks on, they're indoor setting, they're unvaccinated, they were close contacts, meaning they were closer than 6 feet for 15 minutes or more over a 24-hour period, they may undergo a modified 10-day quarantine. Now, up till now, quarantine meant you're at home waiting it out, right? That's not the term anymore. Well, it's still called quarantine, but it's not always going home. So they may continue to attend school for in-person instruction if they are asymptomatic, sorry. So maybe they've been, they're close contacts, so they've been close to someone with COVID, but they are asymptomatic, having no symptoms at the time. If they stay masked, which everyone will anyway, in the classroom, because masks are required, undergo at least twice weekly testing during the 10-day quarantine. So I've seen some district plans here where they're saying they're going to test twice weekly they're looking at like 14 days. So they're saying on day 1, on day 3, 5, 7, and 9 or 11 or somewhere in there to monitor their progress. But it is a 10-day quarantine, so twice weekly during that 10 days is where they'll have to test. And then they would have to stay quarantine, meaning out of all extracurricular activities. So they could still be in class if they're continuing to mask and they're getting tested twice weekly, but they can't go to soccer practice, they can't go to the chess club after school, those types of things. So then we have another scenario here. Additional guidance requires that individuals that are unmasked, this is different than the first group because they were wearing masks, individuals who are unmasked indoors and are required to quarantine. They are close contacts that are not wearing masks. So where an infected individual was not wearing a mask during an indoor exposure, or an unvaccinated students must follow the following guidance. So for these contacts, those who stay asymptomatic, so it could be a person who is, let me look here again, they're unvaccinated, but they've been a close contact, they're not having symptoms, they can discontinue self-quarantine under the following conditions. That the quarantine can end after day 10 from the date of the last exposure without testing. So they can quarantine and be there for 10 days, and as long as they remain asymptomatic, they can come back without getting a test. Okay? The next option is they can quarantine, quarantine can end at day 7 if they take a diagnostic specimen and it's collected after day 5 from the date of the last exposure. So, but as we know, we're about to get into testing, but the PCR is the test that's required. Sometimes that takes 3 days, sometimes up to 5 days for results. So this second one to me doesn't make a lot of sense. They can end their quarantine after day 7 if they got a diagnostic specimen collected after day 5 and had that tested. They're not going to get the results until day 8, 9, or 10. So it makes more sense if they're asymptomatic to go that to the 10 days and then come back and they don't have to test or anything. So for a person who's been exposed to discontinue quarantine before 14 days following the last known exposure, asymptomatic close contacts must continue daily self-monitoring, follow all recommended safety measures, always wearing their mask, and that comes up everywhere here, but since they're required, that's not going to be a big problem. If any symptoms develop during those 14 days, then they have to immediately isolate and do all the things that we've known up to this point. So these are very unique, and it's going to be really incumbent on us in HR as we hear of cases to analyze the cases very meticulously to make sure we know exactly how we're going to have to treat the cases to really limit the spread. So that next section is really just about the PCR test and the antigen test. We've known that we've had both of them. It was really nice to have those antigen tests because we could get results like that, but we realized their standard of error was higher. So we really rely on PCR tests now, and that's how the county health department, what they expect of us as well. When we have to get staff tested, they want to know what the PCR results are, not the antigen test. So we'll move here to, what did I do? There we go. Okay, so this is just a little bit off there. following, at the bottom of this page, now following the procedures below, if your child is sick. This is another important piece here for parents. My child is sick and they're not going to take a COVID test. So if they're not feeling good and the healthcare provider decides not to have them do the PCR test, then they can return when they've been at home for 10 days and from their first symptoms that they had, and that they're without a fever for 24 hours, without medication to limit the fever, and their symptoms are improving. Now that's going to be very similar for the child who's sick and tests positive for COVID. They're also going to stay at home for 10 days from when their symptoms started, get tested if they're, from the date they tested positive, and they'll stay home. If they're asymptomatic and then they've been without fever for 24 hours and their symptoms are improving, then they're able to come back at the same time. So following the same guidelines as if they're just sick but haven't tested for COVID. It's sort of the assumption that they would have it and they're treated that way. And then this last one that we'll do in detail is just that the child is sick and tests negative for COVID. Then it's just like they're sick before we even had COVID, right? They'll be at home as soon as they don't have a fever 24 hours and their symptoms have improved and they have proof of a negative COVID test, then they're welcome back. So we'll get to the last section here about the child has symptoms that are a result of a chronic pre-existing condition. If you've walked on any campus in the mornings, you'll hear kids sneezing, coughing, right, runny noses, all those things that are symptoms for COVID. But there's a plan for that we've been following as well for staff and students, that any kind of a chronic issue with that, we just need a doctor's note identifying that and what the symptoms are and their certification that it's not from COVID, and then we can move on from there. Of course, that's confidential information, but that's how we treat that. So here's just some flyers, a little bit more kind of friendly information for our community, staff and families to keep mindful of good practices. We get into outbreaks here, and this doesn't go into detail, but it just is kind of emphasizing that even one single case can turn into an outbreak very quick. You know, we've had situations where we've had to have an outbreak where we tested down the road and numerous people were positive after that, right? Not necessarily connected, but they were positive just due to the nature of COVID. The contact tracing here, we get into Appendix C. It's something we've been using before. Very important to have that filled out. On vaccinations here, now we've had this new order come out that we have to be vaccinated by October 15th. So that's going to be some new information. We have initiated our vaccination verification process that came out where we have to inquire with everybody. There hasn't been a requirement whether they're vaccinated or not. The requirement was just that they take some action, and taking no action is still action, and that's okay. But we just treat them as if they're unvaccinated. But anyone unvaccinated or in that category, we have to offer the N95 respirator mask, and we have a lot of those, and we've offered those to our unvaccinated folks that we found out so far. We've only done that with a few of the facilities so far, but we're very soon going to get that out to the whole district so that we know. But it's going to have these new requirements embedded in that to have the vaccination by October 15th. The next section there on safety supplies is all about PPE. We've got lots of PPE. It's really important for sites to keep that on hand, and that kind of goes without saying. There's no changes there on keeping everybody safe with having the right PPE. Hand sanitizers available. Masks are the big deal, and that's one of our big pushes that to help control the spread. And this big one here down at the bottom about distancing. This is the only place that distancing still comes up, and it's for adults. One of the times they can have their masks off is when they're eating and drinking in the workplace, provided they're at least 6 feet apart. So that was in place before, but they said they took all the distancing out, but then this was still in. So I had to get verification from the county health department that this is still part of this, and indeed it is. So that's going to be unique that we'll have to monitor. That isn't the case for students, but for adults it is. So that's going to be unique. We just have a section here about selecting the child's mask, how to make sure the mask fits well, since that's one of our greatest barriers for protection right now. Then we have some sections here on gowns and gloves. We have the protective desk partitions, which we're deciding to leave on our desks throughout the district. to help ensure another layer of safety there. Sprayers and disinfectant, we're used to those on disinfecting areas. This chart you'll see is really nice it's kind of a matrix for teachers to really see what kind of symptoms students would have and what kind of situations to get them out of the class and up to the office. So very helpful to look at how to kind of quickly triage a situation rather than sending every student up when there could be students up there that really are suffering from a COVID symptom. We don't want to inundate the office. So I like this really clear methodology there on how to address students. Moving past that, we have ventilation. That, of course, is a big issue. Thankfully, Calexico, we've worked on those plasma air purifying systems right out of the gate and got those installed everywhere. Those have like an ion purifying system that's really kind of high tech to help purify the air coming into all of our buildings. Meal services will continue like we've had for those at sites. And then transportation, extracurricular activities. Transportation is going to be a big deal. Have to treat it like a classroom, always masked. Drivers will be masked. There's disinfection involved on buses, the cleaning part, just like it's a classroom. Drivers and their SETAs, their assistants, will be trained in that, but that is obviously a close contact area, so masks will be very important in that realm. Moving down, student arrival and departure. Whoops, here we are from campus. We're asking parents not to be congregating on campus. In fact, for the first day, we're not allowing parents to be walking children around to their classes. That facial covering is really important even for our parents as they're going to be good examples for their kids, and as they're waiting for their children, we're asking parents to stay in their cars as students are being dismissed. So when they come out, they can get them, but not to congregate at our exits. Let's move on here. Going to support programs and special education. All those things keep moving forward, but all of the support programs from ACES, Migrant, Tutor Me, site tutoring programs, all those things are going to keep moving forward. We are also limiting the use of facilities by outside entities. If they want to use an outside facility, there's a process for that where they can show that they're going to be able to do that in a safe circumstance, but no indoor use of facilities. We're going to be inundated with cleaning from our own staff and employees, and so we're not going to add to that. So that's where we're at with school upon us. Any questions about safety issues or anything related to COVID?
Dr. Thurman.
Yes.
You said that we have masks, we have disinfectants and so forth. It is our responsibility as board to ensure the safety and effective learning environment for not only our students but for our staff.
Absolutely.
Do we have anyone that's going around to check to see every site has everything they need before the 23rd?
We have an inspection form that we have used in the past, and there's a new one on the new CPP that's attached to this document that will be on the website soon. And the first date for that is the late August, but I think it's right up near the start of school. But that's a form where they're checking off that they are saying they've got enough PPE. They've looked around at the different, well, there's not a lot of distancing, but they will have to check lounges and those areas. Those are still going to have to be monitored for that. But also that masks are being worn, those kind of things. I heard from some site administrators this week saying, there's people on my site and they're not wearing masks at all. They're walking around, coming in and out of buildings and not doing that at all. We did a rush for proctors and kind of get some security around to help with those kind of things. So there is a way to kind of monitor when we see those results of those reviews, but I haven't gone out personally to ask. I have heard though from some visits that principals said, oh my gosh, I only had like 30 masks. I didn't have 60 or 80. And so we've encouraged them to have a lot on hand. You never know what
Yeah, because we can have all the supplies we want, but if they're not at the sites, then it's not effective.
I agree, 100%. Yeah. not for the last couple of months because we haven't had students on campus, but prior to that, most of our meetings, I would encourage principals to say, hey, just take a look at your PPE, order more, make sure you have enough, have masks, have all the things that you're needed, even some things that, you know, the face coverings and things that you might not need right now, but if something comes up where you need extra protection, you have some things available, so.
Yeah. And my last question, and I didn't see it here, but I did see it when we had the COVID. How many times are staff cleaning the classrooms?
The classrooms?
Yeah,
There-
is it
it's-
daily? Is
It's a
it
daily
weekly?
cleaning, yeah. The part of the new guidance is that the county has said disinfecting and cleaning daily is sufficient for COVID. So that's going to be the practice that will continue. Now, sometimes we'll have a situation where a school will get cleaned and then the next morning we find out of a COVID case, and wherever they were, we'll usually go back to really make sure it's thorough, but we're not expecting that thorough cleaning to be really different than what happened earlier. The idea is that we don't know when there's a COVID case in a classroom, so our custodial staff knows to really help us do a thorough job as they're disinfecting each night. But there should not be a time where a space goes without cleaning, right? Especially during this time.
Well, I mean, there's always Murphy, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
You try to prevent it,
Absolutely.
and something's gonna come
Absolutely.
up.
Yes.
And
yes,
that's my concern, that
Yes.
we can have an outbreak and then cause
right.
a closure of a school.
To that topic, CSA's worked with us really well on coming up with an acceptable plan to keep a log of rooms that are cleaned. And that's been very helpful, especially early on in COVID. We found out on a Tuesday, say, that someone had COVID and they were tested on Sunday maybe. And so we need to know where they were on Thursday and Friday, what rooms they were in. And we're like, oh, were those rooms clean then? Well, thankfully, we had initiated this sort of a log system, and we could tell, yes, it was by this person at this time. These are the areas, and it was very important. CSA's worked with us to help smooth that process out a little bit, but that was extremely helpful to know if it was or if it wasn't. And if it wasn't, we say we've got to shut it all down and then make sure it gets disinfected. So,
Thank you.
yeah, great question.
Dr. Thurman, real
Yeah.
quick, because I know something that Lorenzo, Mr. Calderon followed up on right now was if we have anybody that follows up as far as going to each schools, ensuring that we do have, you know, all these precautions, you know, safety measures set up. I know there's another district here in the valley that has a district safety coordinator. I think that's something, especially right now during this time and something like that, I think it's something that as a board, we need to start looking into something, you know, trying to implement something like that, because I know you have a lot on your plate, and that's something that this person's sole thing is just to ensure the safety of our district. And he works with the different sites, ensuring that all sites have their safety plans in place and all that, everything gets checked off. And that's something that I strongly believe that we're gonna have to start looking into, especially for a district our size. I think the only other school district here in the valley that currently has it, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is El Centro Elementary School District. And that's one of those things that, you know, I would like to maybe later on, you know, kind of just table and discuss it right now that we're going over these plans and stuff like that, because we need to ensure that these plans are being followed and that we have all the necessary measures in place, because if not, you know, we could expect, you know, a lot of hiccups on the way. So with that said, thank you for the presentation. I think it was real informative.
Yeah, and to add to that, Mr. Alvarado, we do have the site administrators that oversee the plan itself, so we wanted to present it to you. From this point on, it's going to go out to the community, but we wanted to present it to the board first for input. We do have administrators at the district that are assigned to each site as well, so they are constantly working together, checking to make sure that anything in regards to needs that they have that support system in place as well. I love your idea of having a safety coordinator, and that's something we definitely, you know, will bring back to the board. I did want to point something out on page 11. It's regarding masking. And so one of the things that we're doing at this point, following the guidelines, is when it comes to masking indoors, it's mandatory, right? It's required. When it comes to outside, it's optional, unless obviously the recommendation is if there's crowds or groups, then, you know, the recommendation is to wear masks as well. You know, that's the one piece that could change. And so I wanted to bring it to the board's attention, because if the cases continue to rise, go up, then there could be a time that we would then need to make masking mandatory potentially outside. However, we would need the board support for this, and so I wanted to bring it to the board's attention that at this point, what we are recommending is indoor masking be required, outdoor optional, unless the board has a different position on that. But at some point, like I mentioned, it could be if we have cases that rise, then we may need to have not only indoors mandatory, but outdoors as well. So, and I'm talking outdoors in the campus.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Any other questions?
Thank you, Brad.
You,
Excellent report.
Thanks.
You mentioned that you are leaving that it is up to the site principals to ask for equipment, masks, and all these PPE requirements that we want everybody to adhere to. Why are we leaving it? Why are we waiting for site administrators to ask for these things? If we have the manpower, if we have the money, if we have the what we need, why don't we just make the effort and deliver overages of these pieces of equipment or necessary items that they're gonna need to the sites?
Right.
There's an old saying in the military: the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in battle. So right now, this is not battle yet. So why don't we just make the effort and stack all the schools with what they need? If they don't use it, bring it back.
Right.
But are we waiting for a school to say, hey, I ran out of masks? What do I do? Is that what we're waiting for? I mean,
No, that's a great point. And I know when we started before, when we first did this, I believe that Mr. Vega had deliveries sent out, and then as they went through those. But it's very possible that a site could go 2 months without using a single mask when everyone brings them and has them. But that was the point of these monthly inspections reports that they all do, is that kind of what I've said to principals, it just brings it to the forefront of your mind when you're in the middle of a million things. This has got a format to just follow and to make sure things are in good shape. But I think we'll probably do the same thing with getting supplies out there so they have more than enough. But then we will be on them to monitor and to let us know.
and if they don't need it, bring it back.
Yeah, and they could even keep it there for the year.
Or
'Cause
keep
who
it.
knows? Yeah.
But the last thing
That's
that
great,
we
though.
want is to receive a phone call,
Right.
not us, but you guys, receive a
Mhm.
phone call stating that we have a whole bunch of students outside because there's no mask, or they
Yep.
forgot their mask, or
Right.
whatever the case may be. So
Right.
let's just be prepared. We still have a week and a half before we start school, so
Yeah.
let's just be prepared.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So the high school has a 3-month supply in stock. They requested because they have the space, so we provide 3-month supplies, every 3 months. When they get down to a month, that's when they reorder for additional 2 months. So the other sites, the issue with the other sites, it's storage. So even the principals are in agreement that it is better for them to order as they need it. Everything that we have is at the warehouse. So we have containers, and we have a significant portion of the warehouse, stocked with hand sanitizers and all the PPE that we would need to safely reopen. So we kind of have that figured out, and the way that we've been having it, we haven't had an issue thus far, but we can always adjust. As we reopen, we see the need, and again, the principals, if they have a place where they can store up to a month, we can bring it back, we'll leave it up to them, but we have the supplies that at any given time, whenever they request it, within a moment's notice, we'll take it. We'll deliver it to them.
When in summer school, that we have 25 or 50%. Do you remember? 50%?
50%. Yeah.
Okay, now, in a week and a half, we are going to have 100% of our students. So the last thing that we need is to have surprises. We have the money, you have said it, and we have the supply, so let's be prepared, and so we don't get these emergency phone calls as you state. Okay, thank you. That was a H2. H3, review of SB 130. And I asked Mr. Gonzalez for a review of Assembly Bill or State Bill 130, just to make sure that we are complying with what the law states.
Yeah,
Mr.
so
Vega?
Mr. Vega will give an overview.
All right. So last of the presentations I gave, we saved the best for last. I promise I won't take that long, as Dr. Thurman did. Okay, so as Mr. Calderon stated, I was asked to present just an overview, quick overview of what AB Assembly Bill 130, or other people call it Senate Bill 130, is the same thing. AB or SB is just how they are appropriated in each house, Senate House or Assembly House. Anyways, so the one thing that I want the board to remember first and foremost is that this is the end result. This is the state budget plan for the current year. Okay, this is something that was approved and adopted starting July 1. As you recall, and as you know, you approved our budget for the current year back in June. So everything that I'm going to be presenting to you tonight was not in that budget, because again, this was approved after that. So the budget that you approved was based on the May revision-based list of assumptions, and this is, again, the final state budget plan, which is, we are preparing a revised budget plan for the current year that will be presented to you on or before September 15th, which is next month, September 9th to be precise. We will have an updated budget reflecting AB 130, okay? All right, so look, a lot of these things that I'm gonna be presenting to you, we still don't have the exact calculations as to what apportionments we will be getting on certain new programs that have been implemented under AB 130. We are working with the county, we work with CDE, we work with other state agencies to get the best information that we can based on the new programs that have been implemented under AB 130. So just to give you a brief summary, these are some of the things that I'll be talking to you about, but they're not all inclusive. There's a long list. This bill is about almost 1,000 pages long. So it's really hard to quantify everything into this. So I'm only presenting to you the most important information that will impact our budget. We revise it and present it to you on September 9th. All right? So Prop 98, that was one of the big changes to Prop 98 that was adopted under this bill. And our Prop 98 money increased to $93 billion. So that is the Prop 38 funding for schools budget, okay? There were some major changes to the LCFF, and I'll talk about those. There were also changes to the special education funding. There was an amendment to independent study, and I don't want to go over that because I know that Ms. Ramirez already presented on that, but I'll just give you some brief summary as it pertains to funding. Unemployment insurance, that was a big change under AB 130, universal transitional kinder, expanded learning programs, and there were also some expansion of current programs that migrated from the prior year. With me so far? All right, because I know this data can be boring sometimes. All right, so these are some of the major provisions. The number one thing that you will notice under AB 130 is that we no longer have to be subject to state deferrals. As you recall, last year's budget contemplated a number of deferrals that will be impacting our lives in the current fiscal year. Well, guess what? They are no longer, the economy rebounded, money, came a lot better than anticipated, so the elimination of deferrals for the current year and the next year were completely eliminated. So that's a good thing. The other thing is that there was an increase to the concentration part of the LCFF. Remember, the local control formula has a base grant, but it also has a concentration and supplemental grant as part of it that deals with the most needy districts. So there was an increase from 50% to 65%. It also established a new expanded learning opportunity program. Remember, expanded learning opportunity program, not expanded learning opportunity grant. Two different things. So, but this is only affecting, or it's only gonna be implemented in transitional kinder through 6th grade. And I'll talk about it a little bit more. All right. So, when it comes to the local control funding, the local control accountability plan, as you know, we are obligated or required to present to you an update in February of 2022. As part of that update, what we are going to be presenting to you, and we will also be reporting next month when we present a revised budget for the current year, is that the LCAP will increase. Remember when I said that there was an increase to the concentration grant from 50% to 65%? Well, that 15% is going to give us about $4.5 million more that will have to be added to the LCAP. So remember what I said at the beginning, the budget that you adopted and the LCAP that you adopted in June will completely change because of that, all right? Do know that there might be some carryover requirements if we don't spend the entire LCAP funding. So there are, carryover issues if we don't spend the money. We might have to give it back. We don't know. All we know is that there will be some type of consequence. All right. So another big one is the unemployment insurance rate. When you adopted the budget in June, the insurance rates that we were given at the May revision were 1.23% for 21-22 and 22-23. That's a significant amount of change because normally we always range in the 0.5%. That is the average. That is where we have most of the time been. Well, because of AB 130, there was a reduction. We came back to the average rate. So we went from 1.23 to 0.5%. So that's going to reflect an increase in revenues when we present the budget on September 9th. All right, so as part of AB 130, there was also money invested into our school nutrition program that will increase the reimbursement rates. I don't know what the reimbursement rates are. We haven't been given those, but they will be increasing. And as we submit our next reimbursement claim for the month of August, I think we will know by then, what that's going to be. But do know that there was an increase in funding under Prop 98, under AB 130, of about $54 million. With me so far? All right. So universal meals. Okay, so beginning with fiscal year 22 and 23, we are going to be required to provide breakfast and lunch to all students, regardless of whether they have the ability to pay or not. So, AB 130 appropriates $650 million of ongoing funds to pay for that. All right? And the reason they made it for the fiscal year 22 and 23 is because under the current year, we are continuing to use the supper program, which enables us to provide meals at no cost, and to, as we have been providing to our community, and, as we have been operating thus far. So that's for 22-23, and those are the dollars that are given to us that will be ongoing Prop 98 revenue to the general fund that will pay for that. Okay, so there is also money made available for training and upgrades to our current kitchens. Okay, these are grants. So we just have to find out how this money will be allocated and what conditions are going to be required for that. We don't know that yet. As the year carries on, we will find out how to best apply for this money, but that's good. I mean, for schools, for our schools, that means that we may be able to qualify to upgrade our kitchens. Whether it's on equipment or infrastructure, I don't know, but that money is made available for upgrades and also for training of our people. Special education, that's another big one. When we adopted our budget, this was not part of that. So under AB 130, there is a 4.05% COLA to special education. How does that quantify? Well, we don't have the exact number, but I can tell you that it's going to range between 600, it's going to go from about $625 to approximately $715 per ADA. And the money will be distributed and allocated through our local SELPAs. Okay? All right. COVID-19 special education funding. This is an additional one-time appropriation of $550 million that will be made available, and again, funded through our SELPAs. And what is the exact appropriation per ADA, or is it gonna be per ADA, or what's gonna be the, how the money is gonna be appropriated? We don't know that yet. We will find out, and as soon as we do, we will let you know. Again, we have a major budget update coming up in September, and I'm pretty sure that by then we will have more answers for you as it relates to all of these programs, okay? All right, so this is the hot topic. Independent study. There is no additional funding. There is no additional funding for independent study. All right? Independent study, however, we will be able to claim it as ADA. But there are certain guidelines and certain requirements that we have to meet. As Ms. Ramirez explained to you, we will be able to claim some of that ADA. But there is a cap. And what the cap represents, I don't know that yet. I don't know that today. I will know that hopefully by September. I will have better information as to what the cap is going to look like. But the good thing is that in the past, we didn't claim independent studies as ADA. Now, we will have the flexibility to do that, but it's going to be at a cap rate. Did I confuse you? We're good? Okay. Moving on. So I talked about the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program. This is a program that is completely different than our current Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant. So in essence, under AB 130, the state is providing $1.75 billion to provide access to comprehensive expanded learning opportunities for all unduplicated students in grades TK through 6th grade. What we are estimating to get in additional funding under this grant is $4.5 million. And again, that's an estimated amount. It could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit less. For after, ACES, well, okay, ACES like. You want to talk about it?
Well, just going to share with Elisa that, just to put it in perspective, currently, or last year, ACES was funded at about $1.5 million, served approximately 120 students per school site. So when we're talking about $4.5 million, that's almost tripling the spaces in an ACES program. So that's huge. A lot of kids after school. So it just brings up some issues with hiring, training, and then supervising the staff after school.
Thank you. Welcome, Bryce. We have an amazing team of experts at the business office, district office. All right, so, Ms. Huerta Price very eloquently put it, how impactful this grant will be. But remember, board, it's great that we're getting these monies, great that we're getting these programs, but the reality of things for the business office, it creates a huge workload because guess what? Every single plan has strings attached. It's money that has been given to us, but does it require an expenditure plan? Does it require certain audit guidelines, certain deadlines? We just don't know. But again, it's great that we're getting this money that will support our schools, but be mindful that it does impact the workload that we have at the business office. All right, so the A through G completion improvement grant. So we are also estimating to get about $1 million to help increase the number of high school students who graduate with college eligibility courses. Again, this is more for the high school. And as stated in there, it requires an expenditure plan. There is a grant also available through AB 130 or SB 130 of an early intervention for early intervention services. So 26 million of Prop 98 funding to improve school readiness for long-term outcomes for infants, toddlers, and preschool pupils from birth through 5 years of age. I'm almost done. All right. California Pre-Kinder Planning and Improvement Grant. So, in the current year, 21-22, we will be getting approximately $128,000 for planning and expanding, for planning the expansion of our TK programs that will take effect in fiscal year 22-23. So I'm still getting more facts about this program, but know that in the current year, that's how much we are getting for planning and preparing purposes to expand our TK programs starting with the next fiscal year. And there is also a grant made available as an incentive program for certificated teachers who agree to teach in high priority schools. High priority schools meaning, you know, districts like us that we have such a high number of free and reduced and duplicated pupils, that there is a grant made available through the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards Certification Incentive, you know, grant. So this is something that the teachers need to apply to be able to receive the money. And it's also a grant that will help some of our classified folks who wish to attain their credentials and become teachers. You know, that's a grant that is made available also for them. So a lot of good grants are coming through AB or SB 130. We just don't have a lot of info just yet. But again, as information becomes available, we will bring it and present it to you. So with that, I open it up for questions, comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you for letting us know about these monies. And I do appreciate the fact that you're being honest with us when you say that more money, the more money that comes, the more work that you have. And that is true. And so I'm hoping that you are ready to do these tasks. I know you cannot split yourself in 2 or 3. Sometimes we wish we could, but I know it's not possible. However, don't you have ways to pay for like overtime if people wanted to?
Yes, and thank you for bringing that, Mr. Calderon. We have the need, and Fabiola is here. She can attest to what I share with you is that our overtime at the business office has increased, particularly because of all of those grants. From last year, we've been getting all this additional funding, and every additional funding source, like I said, has strings attached. Requirements, deadlines, formal reporting, you know, that we have to submit. It creates a lot of work. But you know what? We do it. You know, we understand it, and we do it because, you know, it's part of what we do. But it does require some overtime, and you know, I'm talking to my staff, you know, maybe we need to explore, you know, the concept or ideas of bringing an additional accountant or two, you know, temporarily for a couple of years to help us mitigate the impact that all of these grants are creating.
Because I do see a lot of money, and it's just not hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's
Millions.
millions of
Yeah.
dollars. So, and I was gonna bring up the issue of maybe temporary contracts. Not bringing up a company to help you. I'm not into that, and I will be very opposed to that. But actually offering work for maybe somebody that wants to work out of classification or something like that. For that, I think you would have my support on that because
Thank you.
this is a lot of money.
Thank you.
This is a lot of money that's coming in.
That
Thank
means
you.
a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, thank you, Mr. Vega. That was H3, review of ASB 130. Item I, consent agenda, all items appearing will be acted upon one motion
So moved.
without discussion unless any items is pulled for separate consideration and action. There's a motion by Mr. Calderon
Second.
Jr.
I have a question on one.
Do you want to pull something out?
Yes, for the K7, I'm sorry,
I.
I7. What is and a question, what is the difference between I7 and K7? I know I'm moving forward, but,
If you want to pull it,
Yeah.
we can approve everything else and then just talk about I7. Is that okay?
yeah, that's fine.
So there's a motion to approve this, and Ms. Magallanes made the motion to pull I7. So is there a motion? So we're gonna approve
Yeah.
this without, except for I7. Is there a second?
Second?
So
You made the motion.
Yeah.
well, no, you made the first motion,
We
but
need
somebody
a
needs to,
second.
You had a second.
but Margarita made the motion to pull I7.
Yeah, that's what she.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please, without I7.
Aye.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Ms. Magallanes, I7.
So, the agreement, on providing speech language, pathologist service, it has the same language as in K7. What is the difference between those two?
Right, so one of them is I7, for example, is for presence learning to be able to provide the speech pathologist actual services. And so one of the reasons, Ms. Magallanes, we are understaffed when it comes to speech and language pathologists. And because we're understaffed and we have students that have IEPs and they need to have the services, then we need to have licensed speech and language pathologists provide the service. So I7, the presence learning, this is for the speech pathologist to actually be able to provide that service directly for the students. So what we're doing in essence is we're contracting out at this point because we don't have the speech pathologist in our district to be able to cover the needs and provide the service to our students. So that's the I7. The other one that you're going to see in the agenda is the actual platform, which is the system. So that's the difference between one item and the other one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there a motion to approve I7?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Calderon Jr. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Ms. Magallanes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Item J, informational items, Superintendent's report. Mr. Gonzalez.
Well, good evening, trustees, admin team, staff, and community that is watching via live stream. Well, summer's almost over, and we have been actively planning to open our sites for the 21-22 school year. Some of the highlights for Calexico Unified School District, specifically for our summer school program. So on behalf of our Board of Trustees and our staff at the Calexico Unified School District, we would like to thank all staff, students, and families who participated in our summer school programs. This year, we hosted a variety of pre-kinder to 12th grade summer school sessions. All programs commenced on Monday, June 21st, and ended on Thursday, July the 22nd. We had approximately 728 pre-kinder to 8th grade students, 112 Aurora High School students, and 1,112 Calexico High School students who were in attendance and engaged in some of the following activities. The K through 8th grade district program engaged students in curriculum focused on technology, language arts, writing, and math. The Migrant K-8 grade summer program worked on language arts, writing, math, and basic cooking skills. The 9th through 12th grade Migrant Learning Hub focused on language arts, math, and science credit recovery. The extended school year program worked on STEAM. They are specifically concentrating on science, technology, engineering, art, and math projects. The Sparks Extended Day program provided fun-filled sessions revolving around the Bioxels program and Makey Mackie Mackie program, Spanish career path exploration, story time, arts and crafts, and the BrainPad music design 3D printing, and the Art for Sale program. The 9th through 12th grade credit recovery and learning hub programs focused on providing the necessary courses to help our students achieve or regain the credits required to continue the learning path towards graduation. The following assets enrichment activities occurred: robotics, welding, culinary arts, and weight training. Our fall sports programs have begun. We currently have volleyball, football, the cross-country running team, cheer, and girls tennis initiating their practice schedules. We look forward to welcoming our students back to school 100% in person. The first day of classes will be August the 23rd, 2021. The registration and residency verification process will continue throughout August via the online located on the CUSD webpage. We have been informing our community via constant contact in regards to our transitioning to a 100% model, which will be coming up pretty soon. On August the 4th, 2021, a letter was sent out to staff and community informing them of the 100% in-person to school procedures that would be in place. On August 10, 2021, a community information meeting was held regarding the CUSD Independent Studies program. We are looking forward to now posting the CUSD Healthy and Safe District and Site Opening Plan that we have presented to the board, most likely posted tomorrow or early next week. During the week of August 16th through the 20th, several CUSD staff welcome back activities and trainings are scheduled to provide time to structure data chats and curriculum planning. Lastly, we want to wish everyone a great start to the new 2021-22 school year. Upcoming activities: our next regular board meeting will be on Thursday, September the 9th at 5 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. That was J1 Superintendent's report. J2 Measure V report, update.
Thank you. I'm going to give you an update first on Measure V. I have some good news. The state will be issuing a check tomorrow for $949,620 for the seismic. So they said to give it 3 days for the check to show up. So that's some money coming our way. And also on July 29th, IID gave us the final check on the culinary arts, which was another $67,000. So the IID has paid all of their money to the district. So I do want to give you an update on the A3 building, which is the 12 classrooms. We are 98% done. At this point, we are at the, what's the word I'm looking, we're waiting for the state inspector to come on the elevator. There were 3 things on the elevator that had to happen. There had to be a torque test on the bolts. That was done today. TL Shields, the company that put in the elevator, had to sign off on it so that they could order the state inspection. The state inspection has been requested. There are only 2 state elevator inspectors in the whole state. So at this point, we're waiting for the date for them to come. Regardless, we can start school in that building. They could tell us we're going to be here Monday, we're going to be here Tuesday. We just don't know.
So those classrooms, the new building is ready to be occupied? Is
Yes.
that what you're saying?
The only thing that is not working in that building right now is the elevator.
Okay,
It's working, it's just not certified.
needs
You
to-
have to have that little paper in there.
yes. Okay, so as long
The
as,
furniture is in, they're cleaning the classrooms. Tomorrow they'll be pouring the last of the concrete on the east and the west, the landscaping. There will be some things that will have to be done on weekends. There's what they call eyebrows that go on the outside over each window on both buildings. Those have not arrived yet. They were a special order item. They showed up, they were the wrong color, so they were sent back, and so they're due to arrive any day, but they will be installed on weekends. So other than that, To tell you the truth, I'm really surprised we're where we are. So we were in there today with the superintendent and Mr. Vega and Daniel, and I think you're happy, are you not?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Desert, for the tour. The building looks beautiful. You know, the classrooms look complete. And so I know that I talked to Ms. Williams today, and she said the staff is super excited. I mean, they just want to go in and start getting things ready. So thank you, Ms. Desert.
I think they're giving keys out tomorrow, and
Right.
then they'll start, I think Monday, moving teachers in there.
Correct.
Ms. Desert, I had a couple questions in regards to A3. When they took over, was it from Silver Creek they took over? Was it in May?
Oakview?
Oakview, they were
Well-
done in May, correct?
Correct, but Silver Creek has never been finished, so they have been allowing Silver Creek to do some of their work at the same time that Oakview's doing theirs.
Because we extended them an extra month, correct?
To,
Finish up, it was in April. In April, we ended up giving them another month because they wanted another month due to COVID or something like that. So that's
you
why
have
we
been
extended.
assessing liquidated damages of, I believe, $550 a day
Yeah,
since
correct.
that date.
Correct, since it's May. So if you calculate, hold on real quick. If you calculate that, it's the equivalent of like $45,000 what we're going to end up getting back. And that's something that we could discuss this later on in regards to the other new buildings that are going to be built, because that's ridiculous. There's some other stuff going on also as well that I was going to ask you right now in regards to the A2 building. Is that all that stuff been done? What we had stated before we did the walkthrough, has all that been corrected? The crack on the cement, the crack on the cements?
The punch list has not been all completed. Now, you have to understand that your warranties will not start until every punch list, every item is done. If they take another 6 months, so be it. You're gonna still get liquidated damages, and your 1-year warranty will not start till you say, we're happy.
Okay. In regards to that cement where we found, has that been done already, Cesar? Do we know
Right next to the,
where the stake is at, sticking out, that piece of wood that's sticking out there?
Was that the stuff today?
no, there was a piece of 2x4 that was sticking out.
I believe that was taken care of back.
Let me double check and I'll text you tomorrow, but I think it was already resolved.
The stairs also as well, you know, the cracking and all that stuff?
The stairs haven't been rectified yet, that's still part of the punch list.
Correct.
The step well, the cracks on the step well, and also on circle track, the new circle track.
And then you said we're still waiting for DSA approval on the marquee,
Yes.
correct? The marquee?
It is in there. We got a letter stating it, they call it bin time. When it first comes in, they give you, okay, this date it was accepted. Then they start the bin time. Once it comes out of the bin and it's assigned to a DSA inspector, then you get a letter saying you're progressing. And we got that letter a week and a half ago.
Okay.
But it's not out yet.
But it's not out yet.
Yeah, correct, because, I mean, that's something I think that's well needed there at the high school, especially notifying our students, the community of what's going on and stuff like that. So that's one of those things where I thought, once we got it approved, that, you know, it was gonna happen right
Well,
away.
the architect actually thought it would be a slam dunk because it would go in, but it didn't go in with the whole project, so it had to be a separate submittal.
Okay,
DSA wanted it as a separate submittal.
all right. Well, thank you.
Is there any other questions?
Well, are you done? Yeah, I do have a question. In regards to A3, that building was supposed to have been completed completely by August 1st.
Correct.
So you say that we're already getting fines from one company. Which company is that?
We're getting what?
Liquidation funds?
You're getting liquidated damages from Silver Creek.
Silver Creek.
Right.
So when do we collect from Oakview? Because Oakview was supposed to be done starting August, correct?
Well, Oakview's contract couldn't start until Silver Creek was done. So it was like one after the other. Oakview moved in to get it done enough that we could use this building when schools opened.
Okay, well, this is how I feel. This building's not done. I mean, yes, you're coming on weekends and so forth, but it's not
But
done.
those items are not Oakview's, those items are Silver Creek.
I know, I understand that. So These building is not done. You guys promised us a complete building by August. And we have students coming on the 23rd already. And to me, it could be a safety hazard for these kids because there might be still like a 2x4 sticking out or something that could cause some injuries to our students. So I'm concerned about that because.
Well, I can guarantee you there's no safety issues at this point.
Well, that's what we say, but then again, God forbid that we do have an accident because these buildings aren't done like they were supposed to have been done. And yet we're saying that it's all good.
If they weren't safe, there would be no way that we would occupy them. And the DSA inspector would not let us.
Okay, so, well, my last question would be, when do we start getting penalties from the last company, Oakview?
That I would have to get back to you on through the attorney. Because I'm not sure what they're finished.
Mr. Calderon, I wholeheartedly believe that Oakview is not at fault here. They are, if anything, they are a victim of Silver Creek. Silver Creek is the company that has the primary contract, and if you only knew how much we fight with that company on a daily basis just to progress and make progress on this building, they are the sole reason why we are behind. And unfortunately, you know, Oakview couldn't finish. Oakview was ahead of schedule. If you remember, the parking lot, Circle Drive, was not scheduled to start, you know, being built until the second building was under construction. And they finished it ahead of schedule because they wanted to be done. They have other projects that they want to get to, but again, it's Silver Creek, the ones that are delaying the whole process. Now, if you want to check, if you want us to check with legal as to what does legal think as far as going after liquidated damages against Oakview, we could check that.
And this is, and it's nothing against you, but if you look at our pre-list here, we have been issuing checks to both of these companies in the thousands and probably the millions. They're still collecting money, and these buildings aren't complete.
We're still holding
So,
10%
so
in
what I'm
retainage.
getting at is, we're responsible for public funds here. And we're responsible for letting them know how these nice buildings are coming along and everything, but yet they're not done. So with that said, we have to do something. We're about to embark in a bigger project, and to get these type of problems, I think we've got to reassess and kind of think of where we're going to go with this project and who we're going to go with, because it's been nothing but problems. And you know what, COVID, I can't hold anybody accountable, but still COVID's been gone, people have gone back to work, and still we don't have these buildings completed.
I understand.
And nothing against you, Mr. Desert, and I apologize if I'm a little, but I'm concerned because our public passed Measure Q for the other building.
Measure
and
B?
yet, or measure, I mean, and here, we can't even complete the first project. So with that said, I hope that you follow through, and if they need to pay us, they need to pay us, because we're paying them.
And we did write some letters, and there's a fine line between pushing so hard that they throw their hands up and say, to heck with it, and they walk off. Then where are we gonna be?
Well, they're still
Well,
getting checks.
They've gotten paid, right?
No.
We still have the retention, 10% of retention.
And we did write a letter to their bonding company, which when you get a black mark on your bonding company, they stand up and take notice.
Wow.
Because they post what's called a performance bond that guarantees that they're gonna perform that contract. So that company is guaranteeing, like a bail bondsman, that you're not gonna run. They're guaranteeing that that work gets done. Well, they got a letter that said they're behind. So let me tell you, heads started spinning. But there is, like I said, there's that fine line between them saying, we're out of here. And then it'll cost you 3 times that much to get somebody to come in and clean it up.
Ms. Desert, real quick, sorry to interrupt you. The no-name field, who took care of that doing the grading and all that stuff on that? What
That
company
was a separate contract with, it wasn't part of this with, it was Oakview. Was it Oakview?
It was Oakview, right?
Yeah.
Did anybody go out there and check what they were doing as far as the grading and all that stuff? Making sure that there was no rocks still kept in there and stuff like that? Have you guys walked it lately?
I haven't, lately I haven't.
Well, I think you guys need to go out there and walk it, please. Because there's patches where there's red clay from where they left everything, the staging. There's
It
rocks.
wasn't part of the original contract, and it, am I correct?
They
It
said,
was
they said
not
it was
part
gonna
of
be,
it.
they said it was gonna be back to the way it was, ready to plant seed. It's not back to the way it was.
It was part of the first contract.
I don't believe so.
It was.
No.
We'll go take a
I do believe it was pulled out.
You know what?
Our plans indicated was, so.
Mr. Vega, who's the lawyer that we're gonna talk to? Mr. Santana?
Sam Santana
Okay.
is the lawyer that has been issuing the letters to the surety company and to Silvertooth.
Okay, let's
on
give,
our- On our request.
okay, so I'd like to be, let's call Mr. Santana sometime either tomorrow or Monday and talk about that before we proceed with anything else. Like she's saying, I don't want those people to just throw, give us a white flag and just leave everything as it is. But we still need to put pressure on those people because this is something that we're paying for. And not just, I shouldn't say us, it is something that the community is paying for. And as for the A3 building, I think it will be a nice thing to give the board a tour of the building sometime maybe next Thursday or next Friday. Okay, so we have a week to make sure that everything gets done. So yeah, so because we would like to tour the building next week.
Okay, that's fine. Just set up the time and we'll be
Yeah.
available.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So that was Measure Q, yes.
On the Measure Q, we are still working on the ed specifications that are required. And that entails meeting with the different department heads and staff. And as you know, they've been gone. And so we're gearing up for subcommittees, and Ms. Ramirez is helping us with that. So once teachers come back, then we can have those meetings.
Don't we have to name those buildings?
Name them?
No? No?
Do you have a board policy for naming buildings? You do, don't you?
We do.
Yeah.
Okay. Because the warehouse is named after,
Mr. Vega?
yes.
Felipe Vega.
Felipe Vega, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
not
yes,
that
yes,
Vega.
yes, not, yes. Okay. All right, so maybe we can talk about that later. So keep, Measure Q,
Right, and then we'll have our basic meeting on August 30th.
Where we would seek what,
Oh, there's an item on the agenda tonight as part of the cleanup, as part of the DTSC for
Yeah.
that project, so that'll be coming forward. We're moving right along with that.
Remember, we have two vehicles under Measure Q. The CEQA compliance, so that we can build there, and also the DSA part of it.
Okay.
All the DSA part of it.
And the DSA is to approve the preliminary plans,
yes,
which Mr. Sanders is working on.
okay.
Is there anything else?
Thank you so much, Ms. Desert, for the update.
Thank you, appreciate it. That was Measure V and Measure Q. J4, association comments, ACT and/or CSEA.
Actually, Ms. Dreesen went ahead and emailed her update that she would like to share with the board.
Sure.
Good evening, board members, administration, colleagues, and community members. ACT is requesting that the curriculum and PD days on August 18, 19, and 20 be virtual meetings. Many members are vaccinated but still do not want to be in large groups. We are requesting this as a safety precaution. The district administration denied our request, but we feel it is in everyone's best interest to have those meetings held virtually. August 17th is a check-in, and teachers will be there physically getting their rooms ready. You were sent a cease and desist letter from me regarding the hiring of an agency to fill the 5 new counselor positions. These positions should be flown in district first to see if current employees want to transfer to the positions. 2 counselors' positions were dropped from the junior highs. Those positions need to be replaced. Hiring the other counselors as temporary is acceptable, as we know you are keeping 50 positions on the budget already. People are waiting in limbo for these positions to be flown. It is sad that in August, we are just now advertising for teachers. I applaud you for keeping the art department strong at the high school. However, the junior highs again lost their art teachers years ago, and they need to be reinstated. Again, you are keeping those 50 positions in the budget. Art is crucial in the development of children. Art in the elementary schools is a necessity, not a whim. I will help you set up an art program that serves the elementary. Art teachers would be on a rotating basis, and each elementary would be responsible for supplies at each site. Lastly, I beg you to please vote to accept ACT's proposal for the first 3 years negotiations, so that we can move on to the next part of negotiations. It is imperative that we finish negotiations to start this year the way it should start, with happy students and teachers. Thank you for your time. That's Darla Dreesen.
Thank you, Janet, for reading Ms. Dreesen's comments. On behalf of ACT, CSEA? Nothing? No CSEA? J5, Insurance Committee?
Want to give you a quick update that we are resuming meetings. We're scheduling the first one for September 14th and a second one for September 28th. And as you know, we'll have both associations represented, and Julie's she's ready to kick that off, and we're looking forward to it. So we'll have a report out after those, of course, and keep the board apprised of everything we're doing.
Our board members on that committee?
There weren't 2 years ago when I served on it, but I don't know if there's anything that would keep you from coming, Mr. Gonzalez.
Yeah, since 2014 that I've been here, no, there's been no board members on that committee.
Anybody want to be on those committees? No?
No tengo tiempo.
No? Okay. All right, thank you, Dr. Thurman. ROP Committee, Mr. Calderon Jr.
You know, I have no comments as ROP goes dark in July, so
Okay.
we haven't met.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon Jr. J6, Accounts Payable Pre-List. Any comments on that?
Yes, I do. Just the same thing as I brought up before, the Home Depot, 500. I know that you brought up a total of 4 of them on the June 24th and the July 22nd. There's a couple of items that are over $1,000 each one, and they're not specifying what it is that they're getting. I know some of the other ones in between those, they did specify the amounts, what they were for and stuff like that. So I just want to I mean, if we need to move it up, we'll move it up, but, you know, it's one of those things, if it says over 500, they need to be specific. We need to make sure we follow that. I know I've been bringing it up for the last, I think, 3 meetings, and it's.
Good evening, board members and Mr. Gonzalez. On the Home Depot, everything that's under 500 doesn't need pre-approval, and we make sure that anything over 500 gets my approval, and we do make sure that it's separated on the receipt that we get. So I don't know which specific ones, but we will get back with you on exactly.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about the ones under less than 500 either.
Yes.
Like I specified, somewhere in the 600 range, somewhere in the 1,000 range, somewhere 1,200 range. So.
Been signing them most of the July ones, and none of them have been over that amount, a single item.
They're combined payments.
Yes.
They're combined, so the rule is that the single item cannot cost more than $500 to be purchased with the
Oh, okay.
PO. But then if they buy 6 items that are $300 each, that's $1,800, so you're gonna see $1,800.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying, a bill, but no invoice has been, an item has been more than 500.
Perfect, all right. So I retract that. Thank you so
All right.
much.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Just to mention, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, you go through these pre-lists, we're still paying these construction companies a lot of money, and yet they're not meeting. You got Oakville, 9,000, I mean, I can go on, and they're still getting money from this district, so.
Yeah.
But that's it, I have no further questions
Thank you.
or comments.
J7, board reports. These are informational reports by board members, no action taken. Mr. Romero?
First, I'd like to give my condolences to the Juarez family. That's truly tragic when you lose your daughter, someone so young, and my prayers go out to the family. Second, I'd like to welcome all the teachers and the classified employees to the new year. I know we have challenges in front of us, but together we could do it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. Ms. Magallanes?
I would like to also give my condolences to the family of our student. And also would like to share three things that, going back to the independent studies, I want to share also my experience as an independent studies student while I was migrating to different cities. It was one of the best options I had, but like everyone, and I'm pretty sure it's not for everyone. And then the second one is on July I had the opportunity to connect and learn from world-class leaders, educators all over the U.S. In a convention. My colleagues and myself learned about at-risk and struggling students, innovating teaching strategies, school district climate and culture, and leadership from the top. And then my third one is I like to formally invite parents and community members to join me in the ED 100 Training Program Challenge. It's a certification to learn how schools get funded, teachers' salaries, how you can participate as a parent, and empowering our children. It's free, easy, at your own pace, and it's available in English and Spanish. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Magallanes. Mr. Alvarado?
Yeah, I also want to, along the same lines as my colleagues just stated, to the Juarez family, my condolences, my thoughts and prayers are with you. Along that, I just want to welcome back our classified and our teachers coming back for this beginning of this school year. Like Mr. Romero said, there is going to be, it's going to get, a little bumpy, but if we work together, I think we could get, out of this here pretty soon, I'm hoping. Another thing that was also part of the training that we went to in Las Vegas, very good, great speakers. I know it's a little bit late as far as trying to get some of these speakers to come out and speak to some of our teachers here, but I would really like to see if there's any possible way the next year or so to bring back one of those speakers, especially specific, Ms. Kickbush.
Yeah.
She was very great. I think she would resonate and open it up actually also to our parents. She really, I think she'll be impactful not only to our teachers, but to our community members and also to our students. She's wonderful. She's great. Actually, one of where we were staying at Caesar's Palace, one of the hotel managers there was actually at one of her talks about 15 years ago. So she actually called her up on stage, and we got to meet her and stuff like that. Also, there was another great speaker from Florida. I think he was part of the Cool Speak. That's another one also as well. Mm-hmm. And I think he would resonate here in our community also as well. Comes along the lines of, growing up pretty much with nothing to where he's pretty much at. So that would be great as far as, opening it up to everybody, the whole community, and getting them there. I know, like I stated, it's not going to be for this year, but hopefully for next year, we could go ahead and look into something like that. And also opening up this conference to our teachers. I think it would be a great tool for them and something new for them to go out there and see. And hopefully we could look into that for them also as well. Other than that, thank you so much, and welcome back for this next school year starting the 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarado. Mr. Calderon Jr.?
Yeah, good evening. It's late now. I mean, it's, what is it, 10:35?
10:35.
All right, well, again, thank you for joining us tonight. I'll be short tonight. My sincere condolences to the Juarez family. There's no words that I can say to make things better here. To lose a child like that it's not good for anyone. So again, my sincere condolences. And also I think we have our priorities straight. I mean, our priorities should be to provide a safe and effective learning environment for our students, for our staff, for our community that's coming to our sites, to make sure that we don't have an outbreak of the COVID. I think or Dr. Thurman said that they have enough PPE kits and masks and everything they need, and I hope that it is provided to the sites to make sure that we are 100% taken care of, and hopefully we can get on with this year without a hiccup. I think that is probably my concern and the board's concern, and not only the parents. I mean, we have 287 students that have requested independent study, and I think that should in itself give us a sign that parents are still concerned that their children can still get infected. Again, welcome to the new year, and hopefully we can get through this without any problems. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us to our Calexico Unified School Board meeting. And on behalf of this board and the Calexico Unified School District, I would like to offer our sincere condolences to the Juarez family. Like Mr. Calderon said, there's nothing really that we can say that is going to make that pain go away. So just know that the family is in our hearts and in our prayers. Welcome to a new school year, and we've been talking about this. This is the after a year and a half. I think this is going to be our time to shine, as they say, because we need to make sure that all of our resources are at the students and staff disposal in order to be able to make this coming back to school a positive one. It's not going to be easy. Nobody said it's going to be easy, but we have a duty, we have a responsibility to educate our children, and I think what we're doing right now, when I say we, I mean the staff, is doing the right thing. So let's just be prepared. Let's just make sure that the sites have what they need, and that we are careful. That we're careful out there. Other than that, welcome to our new school year, and let's have a positive start of the school year. Thank you. That was J7 board reports. Item K items, action items, consideration, action, approval of the following items. Okay, here we go. K1, agreement renewal between Calexico Unified School District and California School Boards Association for gamut services for agenda, online, and policy programs.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Ms. Magallanes. I'm sorry. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. K2, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Asset Works LLC for inventory management services. Have we had this before, Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes, this is the system that we use to inventory all of our, valuables.
So it is a renewal?
Yes, it's a renewal.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Aye. Motion passes 5-0. K3, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Enterprise Rental Car to continue utilizing Department for General Services, DGS, a statewide travel program for car rental rates during the 2021-22 fiscal year.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Romero. I'll second by Mr. Calderon. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 That's 3. All those opposed?
Which one is it?
K3.
Nobody opposed.
Say what?
No one opposed.
Well, only 3 of us voted yes.
I said aye.
You say aye?
Yeah.
Ms. Magallanes?
Aye.
Oh, motion passes 5-0.
Got good hearing.
K4, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and School Services of California Incorporated for special support services.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Calderon Jr., second by Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. K5, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Thomas Kelly Software Associates for expanded learning software services for the 2021-22
So moved.
school year.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Calderon Junior, second by Ms. Magallanes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. K6, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Pearson's for English Language Learning Test,
So moved.
TELL.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Calderon Junior, second by Ms. Magallanes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. K7, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Presence Learning Presence Learning on online special education services provided for the provision of speech services from August 23, 2021 to June 30, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Magallanes, second by Mr. Calderon Junior. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. K8, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Panorama Education to provide social emotional learning curriculum for all schools from September 2021 to September 2024.
Second with comment though?
Motion by Mr. Calderon Junior, second with a comment by Mr. Alvarado. Go ahead.
Is Ms. Price here, real quick? Ms. Price, is there any other school district here in the valley that's utilizing this service or this company?
As far as I know, no, but I do know at one of our last social emotional learning community of practice, ICOE did want to bring a presenter from Panorama and have other districts sit in on a presentation because ICOE was very impressed with the work we've done with Panorama and the ability to be able to track markers for social emotional learning, well-being, challenging feelings, that kind of information that we've never had access to before. So I know that others were curious, and so it may be that over the next year or so, we may have other districts that do contract with Panorama.
Yeah,
But
the only
we're
reason why
first.
I'm asking, Ms. Price, is because if you look them up, do Google search on them, they have a lot of negative reviews as far as
Oh,
that
do they?
goes. Yeah.
Okay.
The most recent one was, I want to say, was September 23rd, 2020, which is, I mean, still about a year away, but I was trying to look up, seeing what it was that they were referring to, but there's quite a few on there as far as that goes. So that's the only reason I was asking. I'm still going to vote. I'm going to take your word for it. I'm still going to vote in favor of it, but I just wanted to see if there was anybody else here utilizing them.
Not yet, but I can share that yesterday, we actually had a workshop with the counselors and the site administrators and the Ed Services team, and Panorama was part of it, and so the feedback I got from the counselors was very good. In our initial presentation, Alejandra Segura was part of the group that sat in on the presentation, and she just went off about how much easier her work can be as a result of having access to student success. But you know,
Okay.
we can monitor that, and I can provide some information
Alright.
to you.
Well, it's 3 years. Can't we shorten the time frame?
We could do a one-year contract. We save approximately $6,600 a year if we do a 3-year agreement, so close to $20,000 if we do a 3-year agreement.
I mean, if there's some concerns, then.
I mean, it's Title IV. We could see after the first year, I mean, it's their contract. We could bring it up also as well, correct? There's probably some type of, something in the contract saying that we could get out anytime if there's anything
I don't
negative
think
or something
so.
as far as that goes, or no?
I believe we can if we let them know ahead of time. The other thing is with Title IV, we have a needs assessment.
Right.
And then we prepare a 3-year, that this needs assessment needs to be reviewed every 3 years. Plus, every year, we do need to evaluate our services.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, okay.
Ms. Price, is this the program where you're gonna need those extra 5 counselors?
No,
No?
no. This is, Panorama is behind the surveys that we had in the fall, in the spring.
Oh.
And then there's a student success portal where school sites, teachers, counselors, principals can go in there and see how students are doing in attendance, academics, social, emotional, and behavior.
Oh, okay. Thank you. There's a motion on the floor and a second. If no more questions or comments, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. K9, agreement renewal between Calexico Unified School District and document tracking services for license and other services related to the single plan of student achievement from the 2021-2022 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Magallanes, second by Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. That was K9. K10, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Jose Fonseca for the sale of private property for the purchase price of $3,000.
I motion to approve, but with a question.
There's a motion by Mr. Calderon,
I'll second, and that's what I was gonna ask.
with a second by Mr. Alvarado. Go ahead.
Mr. Ocampo, just for the public to know, how did we reach to this 3,000? Was it through a bid, through auction
No, it
of
was
these
no
vehicles?
bid. We put it up for bid, back in August of 2012, August 12th, 2020. Nobody bid on them, so the only offer we got for these used vehicles was this amount from this person.
Okay.
That's the only amount that we.
All right, and that's just to be transparent, and that's all I had. Okay.
So
that's all my
there was an attempt.
That was it, that's all I was
There
gonna
was
ask.
an attempt we went out to bid, nobody bid on them.
Okay.
And then we got this offer, and we either take the offer, or we end up, putting out for bid, or salvaging the vehicle, which is gonna cost us to salvage them.
Okay.
And these bids were placed in the newspaper?
Yes.
Yeah, they were? Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So there's a motion and a second on K10. No more questions or comments. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. K11, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Watkins Environmental to remove and dispose of asbestos and universal waste from the grounds modular buildings. I'm assuming this is at the high school?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Romero, by Alvarado,
Rams, no.
and second by
I
Ms.
do want to know
But-
where they're from.
Who seconded?
Ms. Magallanes.
And by Ms. Magallanes. So there's a question on the floor. Go ahead.
Yeah, where are these modular buildings?
This module building is on M&O property,
Oh.
in the facility, and it's, one of the old trailers that we're trying to remove. It's on the most, southern trailer of the 4 trailers that we have.
Where the electricians,
Oh.
plumbers, or all that?
Okay.
We can't use it because it's so damaged that we can't go into it, but it's the last trailer. The other trailers, we're trying to, modify those.
Where you have those dump trucks? Is that, remember, you had old trucks?
Yes, well, we have
Okay.
the old surplus, we're trying to surplus
Yes,
those
okay.
vehicles right there.
Okay. All
All
right.
right.
So there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. K12, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Dermas Floor Covering to perform flooring work at Rockwood Elementary, Kennedy Gardens Elementary, and Enrique Camarena Junior High School.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Calderon Jr.,
Second.
second by Mr. Romero, Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. K13, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and McKinley Vento for staff training.
I'd
So
like
moved.
some insight on this.
Who, okay,
Romero motion,
Mr. Romero motion,
and I'll
motion.
second it.
and Mr. Calderon
Second
Seconded?
With,
with
an
a,
ins-
with a comment?
yeah, I'd like to know what it's about and
McKinney
what
Vento?
are we doing with
Oh,
this?
okay, go ahead. No.
So every year, one of the requirements of Title I is to provide training to all the staff regarding the requirements for students that are considered homeless or classified as homeless. And so this is a platform that allows to provide that training without somebody having to do that. So in the past, Mr. Villalobos, our homeless facilitator, would go to school and provide training for the teachers. But then, if a teacher missed the meeting or, somebody wasn't available, then they would miss the training. So this would allow us to it's similar to Keenan. And so there are modules that we can go in there, provide training, and this would actually expand training to not just our certificated people, but classified. Could also learn more about the services and the rights of homeless students.
And the McKinney Vento is the law. It's a state law that protects all those students that are considered homeless and other categories as well. But it's mostly for homeless students.
Yeah, and I understand that it's important to track these kids, but my question is, when you say training, it's just to be aware of, this kid might be homeless and.
Yeah. So it's kind of like how to identify and how to provide services to students that are
And-
homeless.
Okay.
And the rules
There's no input or in the, anywhere in the computers asking questions or anything like that?
Yes, it's pretty similar to Keenan. So when we do the Keenan videos on preventing sexual harassment, child abuse prevention, so we watch videos, there are some questions that we need to answer, and then there's a test at the end to make sure that we were paying attention, and we have to show proof give proof to HR that we viewed the videos, we passed the videos, and we give the certification there.
Okay.
Anybody else? Thank you, Ms. Price. So there's a motion and a second. Who seconded? Mr. Calderon Jr.? Okay. If you have no more questions or comments, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. K14, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Imperial County School Food Service Cooperative for food and paper products for fiscal year 2021-2022.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Calderon Jr. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. K15, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and ASCO for linen services for 3 years.
So moved.
Oh, snap.
Second.
I think that they're telling us we gotta
All
go.
right. I'll go. Bye. All right, so again, sorry about that. So, motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Calderon Jr.
No, it was Romero.
Mr. Romero? Okay, if no more questions or comments, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. That was K15. Is everything okay? Video and everything? Okay. That was K15. K16, bid award and agreement to Allied Waste Transportation to provide solid waste and recycling services.
So moved.
Second.
Second with a question.
Who seconded? Ms.
Well,
Magallanes? Yes.
okay, I have a
Oh,
question.
He's,
Go ahead,
yeah.
Ms.
You have a
Magallanes.
question?
Okay, motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Calderon Jr. with a comment. Go
Okay.
ahead.
And my question is this company, is the lowest bidder, but my question is, are they gonna provide the same services that what the other company was providing, I believe?
Same services.
Same service?
Exactly the same services, same day, same collection, same type of trash cans, the same everything, it's just they came back as the lowest bidder.
Yeah, it was substantial
Mhm.
too.
Yeah, but it's exactly the same.
Okay,
Okay.
that's all I have.
So there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion passes 5-0. That was K16. K17, lease agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Neighborhood House of Calexico Incorporated for use of facilities during the 2021-22 and 2022-23 fiscal years.
So moved.
Second with a question.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, with a second by Mr. Calderon Jr. with a question.
And maybe this is for Mr. Vega. Does the district have some type of procedure or process? How do we assess the rents here or the leases? The amounts, that is?
Not a fixed procedure. I mean, this organization has been with us for a number of years. So we just increased, we went from $400, $500. We've been increasing it by $100 every year, each month. So that's how we have assessed that. But as far as having like a realtor or a professional company that can come in and assess this, we don't have that.
Okay. And you'll see why I'm asking this, because, I mean, this is for 3 years, $700, correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
How many classrooms are they
Just
using?
one? Just one?
Just one?
one.
Just one,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, is it for 2 years, Fabiola, for 2 years? This is a 2-year,
Well, according to, it's a it's 2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
21, 22, the current year, and 22,
Well,
23.
all right, you're right. And what I'm asking is, and it pertains to the other item, but we'll discuss that one. That's why I'm asking to see if there's like a
On
set.
the other one, I did have a comparable, that's the 700 that is proposed is what other districts charge
We're not there yet.
for a similar,
We're not there yet.
I'm so
Well,
sorry.
I know, but, okay.
That's,
So
Okay.
I'm good because it's only one building for neighborhood house. Because we don't know how our district's gonna grow, if we are growing or decreasing or whatever. We don't know, we don't have a crystal ball, and that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, there are
this.
termination clauses that if at any point in time we need to occupy the building, we have to let them know 30 days in advance, and they have to.
Okay, so,
I
There's a
have a
motion.
question.
Go ahead.
I was looking at the contract and on I mean, it's only one building, compared to, K-18. But will they do the maintenance and repair? Because on the 3.7C on the contract, it doesn't state that they're gonna be, because of the AC.
So normally, anything that goes on with the building structurally, we will maintain it, because it's our building. No different than when we rent an apartment, something goes wrong with it, we call our landlord. So that's, we will do that.
But okay, let's move on. Thank you.
Okay, so we have no more questions or comments. All those in favor of K-17, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. K-18, lease agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Imperial County Office of Education for the use of the former Family Resource Center modular unit located at Mains Elementary School, Little Bulldogs Child Development Center.
So moved.
There's
I
a motion.
second with a question.
There's a motion by Mr. Romero, second with questions by Mr. Calderon Jr.
Okay, and this is why I'm asking this question. I mean, we have this contract for 15 years at $700 a month, or is it a year?
Month.
A year, a month?
The $700.
Okay. Same contract, almost same contract as the other one at the neighborhood house, but this is for 7 years. 15, I'm sorry.
15.
And the district is gonna assume all the water and the electrical and.
The utilities,
yeah.
with the exception of
So-
the HVAC unit.
I know for a fact that I'm not gonna be here in 15 years, and probably some of us won't either, so. I have an issue with the 15 years. I mean, they're getting, the last time I was in that FRC, there was like, I would say, at the most, 5 rooms or something, if not.
It's about the equivalent to 2 portable buildings, give or take.
Yeah, there's plenty of space there. And that's why I'm asking, because, I mean.
No, you're
mean-
absolutely right. I mean, would you consider approving it for a less number of years?
Well, and that's, I mean, I know they're getting a good deal, whereas neighborhood, I mean, they're paying 700 for just a little.
One.
So, my question is, 15 years is overwhelming. I mean, like I said, I'm not gonna be here for that. I know that for a fact, and the majority of us won't be here. So, I don't think it's fair for the rest of the people that are coming behind us. And it's not fair for our taxpayers to lease this for 15 years. And I know you said we can terminate or
for
whatever, but
convenience.
I don't think it's fair and I don't think it's wise. So
I know,
I'm
Mr.
gonna-
Gonzalez.
Yeah.
I'm not in agreement with
If I
so
can-
many years.
Go ahead.
Yes.
If I can add something, Mr. Calderon, I think the difference in this building is that with this building, it's gonna be completely remodeled. The other one, it's one where it's being used more like an office-type space. This one is gonna be completely, from what I understand, gutted out and completely changed because it's being used for a child development center. And based on the need that we have here in Calexico, there's a huge need for child development services in that area. So the one guarantee that we do have is that they will be upfronting and putting all the money for all of the development. And not only that, but for that amount of time, we can ensure that our students are receiving the services that are much needed on that side of town, especially with the child development, preschool services. And so that's all that we will be getting for free, our community, which is going to be provided by Imperial County Office of Education. There's a lot of federal money, and it's a great opportunity, not only for our community that's going to really benefit from it.
Yeah,
Can I make-
well,
hold on real quick. Can I make a motion to extend for, till 11:30, just to be on the safe side?
There's a motion on the floor, is there a second?
But I-
Second by Mr. Calderon Junior, motion by Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Go ahead.
Well, if my mind serves me correct, ICOE was supposed to do the same thing with where the FRC is now, and we had to come up with the funds. At least because this FRC that they're going into was supposed to have been demolished because of the expansion of 98. That's why we went and did the FRC. So,
Would you be more comfortable
well-
with 5 years, maybe?
Can I comment on something?
Hold on.
Can there be like a 3% increase per year, as in because of the cost of living, I mean the rental? I just recently rented an office not too long ago, and in the contract, it states 3% increase because, I mean, everything's gonna be much, expensive.
May I propose maybe just do 5-year, and then 5-year, we can
Or less
revisit it
time,
at that
or
point?
less years.
Does that make sense? Because I think we're going to be gaining and getting so much for the community that in 5 years, we can revisit if maybe there needs to be a change in the lease
Well, if
amount
they're
at
gonna
that
gut
point.
it out and redo everything like you're stating, then I'm good. If we're to do a 5-year, I'm good with 5 years.
is that in writing, that what they're doing?
It says right here,
Yeah.
it says that they are responsible for anything and everything.
Well,
that-
yeah, just the upkeep, but it doesn't say that.
No,
they're gonna-
also
It
remodelization.
doesn't say remodel.
Oh, no, they'll have to. That's the only way they can,
It
because.
says maintenance and alterations.
Yeah, with,
Yeah,
the-
they're
with,
responsible for.
with
everything.
federal programs, they're so strict that in order to have children in there, they have to meet a lot of requirements. So that whole area, it's gonna change, completely. It's gonna be redone.
So how about 3 years?
Well, I think 5 at least gives them that enough time to maybe even recoup some of those costs, to revisit it and maybe do an increase there of the lease.
Yeah, well, if we can get whatever they're gonna do in writing, I would also appreciate it, because like I said earlier,
Yeah.
they said that they were gonna do that to the RFRC now, and we had to pay the entire construction there. But again, if it's the need for our kids to improve,
Yeah.
that area, I'm for it too, but with 5 years, I think I can work with that.
Well, the original motion made by Mr. Romero is,
Okay.
as it sits, which is 15 years, so, and you made a second, so you will have to retract your
Well, I'll
second,
retract my motion
with your
with
second.
50, yeah, with my second.
Mr. Romero, would you like to retract your motion?
No, I won't.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor, is there a second? Motion dies for the lack of second. Is there another motion?
I'll do a motion for the 5 years.
There's a motion on the floor to approve this contract, but instead of 15 years, to make it only 5 years. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a second by Mr. Calderon Junior. No more questions or comments. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Opposed, Mr. Romero opposes, so motion passes 4-1. What's going on with the lights?
Let's go, keep going.
Okay, that was K-18. K-19, proposal between Calexico Unified School District and the International Academy of Science Accelerate Web Learning Process Services for district-wide school sites.
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
Me.
Second. Motion by Mr. Calderon Junior, second by
Alvarado.
Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. K-20, memo of understanding between Calexico Unified School District and the Imperial County Office of Education for web content filter services for 1 year, 2021-2022.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Ms. Magallanes. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Mr. Romero, aye?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. That was K-20. K-21, memo of understanding between Calexico Unified School District and the Imperial County Office of Education Professionals Development for SSEL, ACES, Leadership and capacity building cohort participants.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by
Ms. Magallanes.
Ms. Magallanes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. K-22, application for category programs for continuing funding in Title I, Part A, Title II, Part A, Title III, Immigrant, Title III, Limited English Proficient, LEP, and Title IV, Part A, for 2021-2022 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Calderon Jr. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. K-23, first reading and waive second reading of revised board policy and administrative regulation 6158, independent study. First reading, so do we have to
You just,
open it, or no?
No.
Just this is
So moved.
this is the first reading, and we're waiving the second reading because
Correct.
we are about to start the school year. So there's a motion by Mr. Alvarado, and there's a second by Ms. Magallanes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. That was K-23. K-24, first reading and fourth, revised administrative regulations 1312.3, uniform complete procedures.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr.
Romero.
Romero. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. That was K-24. K-25, resolution regarding disposition of surplus assets, non-asset office furniture at English Language Learner Center.
So
Okay.
moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Magallanes, second by Mr. Alvarado. Roll call, Mr. Romero,
Yes.
Mr. Magallanes,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarado,
Yes.
Mr. Calderon Jr.
Yes.
Myself, Mr. Calderon, yes. Motion passes 5-0. That was K-25. K-26, resolution regarding disposition of surplus assets, non-asset technology equipment at Kennedy Gardens Elementary.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr.
Is it resolution?
Alvarado, yes. Second by Ms. Magallanes. It's a resolution. Mr. Romero,
Yes.
Mr. Magallanes,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarado,
Yes.
Mr. Calderon Jr.,
Yes.
myself, Mr. Calderon, yes. Motion passes 5-0. K-27, resolution regarding disposition of surplus assets, non-asset grounds equipment at the Maintenance and Operations Department.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Calderon Jr. There's a resolution. Roll call, Mr. Romero,
Yes.
Ms. Magallanes,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarado.
Yes.
Mr. Calderon Jr.?
Yes.
Myself, Mr. Calderon, yes. Motion passes 5-0. That was K-27. K-28, resolution regarding disposition of surplus assets, non-asset office furniture at district office.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second
Magallanes.
by Ms. Magallanes. Roll call, Mr. Romero,
Yes.
Ms. Magallanes,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarado,
Yes.
Mr. Calderon Jr.,
Yes.
and myself, Mr. Calderon, yes. Motion passes 5-0. That was K-28. K-29, resolution regarding disposition of surplus assets, non-asset technology equipment at Jefferson Elementary.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Calderon Jr. Roll call, Mr. Romero,
Yes.
Ms. Magallanes,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarado,
Yes.
Mr. Calderon Jr.,
Yes.
myself, Mr. Calderon, yes. Motion passes 5-0. K-30, certificated employment report, Mr. Gonzalez.
Recommend that the board approve the certificated employment report as submitted with a clarification, a change on page 2, Appendix H, and the stipend amount of $2,400. Instead of Joanna Sesma, it should read Joanna Bermudez.
Thank you. That was K-30. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second, but with Carlos, with the comment real quick, is that the one with Villalobos where he's mentioned twice?
No, this is the one,
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
correct.
Okay.
I did get a response from Ms. Armendariz. There was a confusion. The 200 hours is for all three people once.
Okay, so the other one's gonna be
So, yes, so one of them
Okay.
should be removed.
stricken out?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. K-31, classified employment report. Mr. Gonzalez.
Recommend that the board approve the classified employment report as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez.
So moved.
Motion,
Second.
Motion by Mr. Calderon Junior, second by Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Item L, reconvene to earlier closed session. We're not reconvening to an earlier closed session. Item M, reconvene to open session. We're back. Item N, announcement of actions taken in closed session. No actions were taken in closed session. Item O, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
There's a motion to adjourn by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Calderon Junior. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Good night. It is now